presentation of Food Service Payroll. I'd like to start by just talking a little bit about who we are at PC Solutions. We've been providing Counterpoint and Passport Solutions to businesses for over 34 years. For the last 16 years or so, we have been working with a number of large restaurants and hospitality customers. And what we found in this space is that food service and hospitality industries have some unique challenges when it comes to payroll. They have a very large number of employees which perform many different job functions, such as waitstaff, hostess, bartender. And with these job functions, oftentimes they have different pay rates, which are difficult, if not impossible, for a standard payroll system to manage. Additionally, specifically in the food service area, there are tips that need to be handled and accounted for properly. So today we'd like to introduce you to our payroll product, specifically designed for the food service and hospitality industry. Our Food Service Payroll module offers job codes, which are assigned to individual pay rates. It also offers proper handling and reporting of both direct and indirect tips. Additionally, Food Service Payroll integrates with the Passport Affordable Care Act product. So with this total solution, we're able to offer food service industry and hospitality industry customers a complete compliant payroll solution for a fraction of the cost you may be paying an outside payroll service. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the features that we'll review in the demo portion. Jerry, can you advance the slide? So this product is an add-on to the Passport Standard Payroll module, and it adds a variety of features which are critical to the hospitality industry, such as job codes, various pay rates, and tips. Provides a number of unique food service reports, which we'll show you a little bit later. And we've also enhanced some of the Passport standard reports. As I mentioned, it integrates with the Passport Affordable Care Act module. And we can import sales, tips, and additional payroll data from many of the restaurant front-end point-of-sale systems. We've worked with Micros, PosiTouch, Aloha, so we can help with those imports. Jerry, next slide. Some of the unique features that are presented with the Food Service Payroll package are as follows. Accurate paychecks, so we can calculate hourly rates and up to 5 job codes for each employee's time worked. Efficient paycheck distribution, we can print checks alphabetically by last name or by department, location, etc., and this allows for faster check distribution. We offer clear withholding and deduction exceptions reporting. We also have comprehensive tip management. So we track direct and indirect tips for allocation, including employee sales for tip allocation and employer collected tips for distribution on employee payroll. We have excellent cost and profit insights with detailed management reports such as, or management reports including pay distribution by employee, job code, GL account, and GL cost tracking employee sales for tip allocation. I already mentioned the fact that we do integrate to front-end point-of-sale systems. And we also, actually about a year or so ago, added a new feature which allows you the ability to send encrypted emails for your direct deposit employees so they can receive their check stub in email which is encrypted with a password. And I am going to turn this demo over to Jerry. He's going to go through some of the specific screens and how they function for the food service payroll and get into some of these features along with reporting that I talked about. Jerry?
Thank you, Shelley. So the first thing we're going to look at as far as this demo is concerned is a little bit about the master information. Let me get the right mouse going here. So under master information in the payroll module, you have something called payroll jobs. That's one of the key to the software. In here, we're able to designate job numbers, and here is job number 1, payroll weight, what the hourly rate is, $3.26, the overtime rate, if you have a special rate like for holidays or double time, and the GL account number where the distributions will go to. And you can have any number of these at different pay rates. The bartender makes more money. The hostess makes more money than that. So this goes on and on and on, and you just create your payroll jobs. It is important that these payroll jobs match whatever you're using on the front end, so that the codes and the rates are the same. Also in the master information section, we have the control information file. And here, in addition to it being connected to the ACA module, the food service module has its own little setup where you can determine how jobs are distributed, where the wage rate comes from. In this case, we're importing the file, and what you want to print on the check stub. So again, this is modified control information for payroll. Another module, master information. I wanted you to see the tax tables, the deduction earning codes, because in here we had to add a code that represented the tips. So here we have a code called TD for direct tips. And this is a new piece here called tips, and it's direct. We also have it for indirect tips. I'll have to cancel that. That's tips direct. These are indirect tips. All right, so that's the last new piece in the master information. Additionally, here in the employee record, I'm going to just switch this over. We have another tab called Food Service. This has been added in. Here you're allowed to store up to 5 what we call default pay jobs. This employee normally works on these particular jobs, and this is used, so if you have to manually enter pay or weekly pay information, job information, this allows you to cycle through the standards. Of course, if you import, which is what the most efficient way is, it bypasses this anyway. It brings it in from their work. So when they're punching in on their Aloha screen, they're telling you what job function they're doing. And that job function, as I mentioned before, the code must match the same code in payroll. We also store sales year-to-date and sales next year information. This is next year is before the year is closed. And tips. We store reported tips. Next, I'd like to show you a typical payroll run. This will take no time at all. The first step I want to follow is I want to import my payroll work from, again, Aloha or any other system you're using. And I'm done. I'm finished with my payroll import. It's very quick, as you can see. And if I were to look at my process here, I'll just say OK. This is the payroll. This is the department, the employee. I brought in tips, direct tips of $181, no indirect tips. I brought in sales of $1,017.69. So additionally, this person worked 2 jobs. Job number 1, 10.16 hours at $3.76. Job number 10, a different GL code, $14.47 and $12 an hour. This is for each and every employee just the same way. And as normal, you simply calculate your payroll. and payroll calculation is complete. The next, you would simply go and print and post your checks. Now, my setup here is for direct deposit. So I do ACH checks, I do direct deposit to the employee's bank, and in fact I email their pay stub, their check information. So I'd like to show you, I'd like to take a look at those. First thing I want you to see is the payroll register. So here's our typical payroll register, as you normally would get from your payroll system. I also get an exceptions register, because when you work in the food service industry, you could very well be earning much of your living based on tips. And so as you saw, this person previously was getting $3.96 or $3.76 per hour. So you can't live on that, you need tips to follow. So what happens here is, because the tips go directly into her pocket, we don't pay the tips. We only pay the $3.76. She doesn't earn enough money to pay taxes or to make all her other deductions. So this register, exceptions register, is there to show you where the employee's shortfall occurred. Federal withholding tax, state withholding, maybe a 401k deduction, anything like that. And the employee is responsible for these amounts. So they must know what they are and be able to deal with it. They could submit a quarterly payroll tax payment, or they can pay it at the end of the year, of course, when they file their tax return. Here's our direct deposit register. So this is the payroll we ran, and these are the employees, their employee number, the deposit. This is the amount of money that's going into their bank, and this is their bank being used. And just so you'll know, this is what the graphical check looks like. So I can't get this to slide down a little bit. So company information is here. This is about the employee, etc. These are the earnings. This is the total. However, further down on the distributions, it breaks out what jobs they performed, the name of the job, how many hours, and the rate, and the total, so that every employee can see what they're being paid for, how much, and when. And if this is a direct deposit employee, of course there'll be no check. If this is an employee with a paycheck, like this particular employee, this is the bottom half, this is the check. This is what they receive, and they can deposit on their own. Additionally, the software has what we call food service payroll reports. These are reports that are unique here to the food service product. Oops, there we go. First one is called Job Distribution Report by Employee. So in this case, I put in a date range, so I'm running it from the first of the year, but you can run this by the week, by the month, any period you want, in a couple of different formats. But in this case, it's department, employee number, Susan Howard, number 9. These are the jobs she performed, the weeks that she performed them, the amount of money we're paying for that, how many hours she worked. And by the way, this was the dollars affected. So you can go right down this report and see where everybody is working and what they're doing and how much they're being paid. And you can use it also as a way to maybe determine where your employees should be working or where you need the help. Another report that's been changed is the 401k information report. We've added in some new fields like birthday, hire date. You can turn these off and on, and other information about their 401k. This is an enhanced employees by name report. It's enhanced in that it gives you additional pieces of information not currently in the payroll software. And here's a payroll job list. So this is just a list of the payroll jobs that are currently in your payroll system. They're in numeric order. They show you the pay rate, the overtime rate, and the GL account code, and just another copy of the description. So you want to check and see what you have, this is it here. Just a few more reports. I think I showed you this one already, 401k information report. And that's it for the additional reports. At this point, I'm going to be turning over the presentation. And I'm just going to put it on the correct slide. All right. That's it for me. Bill, you want to take over?
Thanks a lot, Jerry. Appreciate it. Could you go back one slide, please? So at this point, it's my time to come in and just kind of, give you a few facts at the end of the presentation. So what does this really all mean to you? We just came back from the Passport seminar, our yearly seminar. The whole theme of the seminar was connect and collaborate. And this software really is a perfect example of that collection and the collaboration of joining efforts and giving opportunities to partners and those then to customers to be able to, really, give them a really good solution, which is what we're all about. So what does it all mean to you? It means financial opportunity in the very short way of putting it. It's a growing industry, the food service hospitality field, and it's going to continue to generate new sales. The restaurant hospitality industry has more new sales year to year than any other market that's out there. So it's continually generating new sales. Unfortunately, some of those restaurants go out of business, but it also generates new customers, new sales opportunities, new customers to be able to give solutions to and become valued partners with. So you have new sales of services and new sales of Passport and opportunities where we can get in and act as a valued partner to help customers to be able to control their expenses and get a hold of all of their costs. Largest controllable cost that any business has, but specifically restaurants in general, food service payroll, is salaries, employment, employees. So the labor is the largest controllable expense that we have. If we give them good tools to be able to get at and easily be able to calculate the payroll, then we'll be able to see those numbers and help them manage their businesses. There's a cost savings to be achieved over regular popular payroll services. Payroll services are very expensive. We'll get into that in a few minutes, but in the food service industry, you really still have to do most of the work. And the return on investment on an in-house versus a web-based or an external third-party payroll service is generally around 6 months. Can be less, but can be a month or two more, but generally well under a year and really averaging about 6 months. That just means that what they put into the cost of putting this service in-house and doing their own business, in 6 months they're going to pay for it, and the next 6 months that savings goes to their bottom line. This is all something that you can offer opportunities to your customers. Change the next slide, please, Jerry. So let's just take a quick step back and look at the restaurant industry. I'm not sure. I know we have some people on the webinar today, but if you want to raise your hands and any of those people who were at the Passport seminar, you can raise your hand so I can see whether I'm repeating some of this stuff and you've heard it all before. But in any case, we just want to do a quick restaurant review. So there's some amazing, astounding numbers that we've been tracking over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. but a big change. In 2018, the restaurant industry sales are going to be $799 billion with a B dollars. That's going to be a total of 8% of the total GDP, and that was 4% back in 2015. Just an amazing growth. A lot of industry sales. It's projected to still maintain that moderate growth, and this is going to represent 9 straight years of real growth year over year. It's 5.8% growth in the last 3 months alone. I mean, this industry is taking off. Of course, the markets are taking off. I mean, you know, economy is very good right now. This industry is the nation's second largest private sector employer. We've had 9 consecutive months of net increase in the same store sales. You have 15.1 million workers, and that's projected to be 10% of the total national workforce. We have over 1 million locations in the country currently this year. 10,000 new restaurants were added in 2017. That's a 1.8% growth. 66% of operators are saying in surveys that are taken in the end of third, beginning of fourth quarter, that they are going to be making expenditures in the next 3 months, the fourth quarter of the year. It's a perfect time to switch over from a third-party service to an in-house service. In the last 3 months, the industry has added 224,000 jobs per month. That is just a phenomenal increase. Menu prices, by the way, are up about 2.8%, which also helps in a couple of different areas, but that means that there's hopefully more going to the bottom line as well. Restaurants are able to add a little bit more, and hopefully that covers a little bit more profits for the owners. Next slide, please. Economic perspective generally is that half the consumers are out there say that restaurants are an essential part of their life. Just think about that last phrase, essential part of life. I mean, that's like part of your everyday, day-to-day happenings. You have included restaurants in that part of that day. It's like breathing. You have to breathe air. That's an essential part of life. Well, going to a restaurant, half the consumers are saying it's that essential. It's phenomenal. 7 in 10 consumers say that their favorite restaurant food provides them flavors they just can't duplicate at home. I mean, an awful lot of families today and for a long time have gotten together and you eat over food. You get together with friends and family and you celebrate. You enjoy good times. You just enjoy each other's company. And if you can do it at home and you can cook, a lot of people love to cook at home. But 7 in 10 consumers say, I'm as much as I want to cook at home, and I might do that every week, I'm going to go out to a restaurant as well. That's what that's saying. 8 in 10 saying dining out with friends is better the use of their time and money than cooking at home. Kind of follows up on the previous one. Consumer spending in restaurants is remaining very even or up, and the rumors of any kind of a recession are just obviously misplaced. And the economy, let's face it, the economy is booming. I mean, right now it's red hot. It's projected, depending on how things go, to even continue to grow more. That means that consumers have more spending that they can go out and use in any way they want. A lot of times they will use the spending in restaurants. They'll continue to dine out, and they're just careful sometimes when times get tough where they go. But you can remember back in 2008, 2009, 2010, even though the economy was nowhere near as good and salaries were down and people were being laid off, good restaurants still had lines waiting for them. There's a lot of confidence right now in the economy, and it's very, very strong. And consumers are going to continue to allocate money on their budgets, for their budgets to dine out. Key to profits for restaurants are really obvious. In some cases, the obvious one is location, 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 the 3 famous ones. Menu and food quality, and then service. And if they can carefully manage their sales to cost ratio, they're going to keep their margins and their profits in line. So what they need is a good solution backed by good support and service, and that gives them an easy way for them to get a hold of reports that they can have customized to the way that they want to see them, so that they can help control and manage their businesses. Now I'll catch up to the slide we just saw. but it's okay. We'll get this coordination down. So we started off by taking surveys. We asked a lot of customers why they are using third-party payroll packages, why they might have even switched away from an on-premise to a third-party service, and they really took a look at a lot of good information, and we based that information and that feedback, and a lot of the reasons that they came back with were confidentiality. They say the cost was less. And they had less responsibility. That was some of the reasons that they had. But when you really take a look at payroll services, and some of these same people are now going back and revisiting because they started to see after 3 or 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden, their costs have really gone up to do a third-party service, and it's expensive. Business owners still have to do almost all the work. If you're in the hospitality business, oftentimes you're distributing, all your department codes and all of your cost of your tips and those costs to different departments. It's more difficult to do that. You might be doing differential pay rates, calculating those tip credits, those types of things. They all have to be done manually. If you have multiple employees at different departments on the same week at different pay rates, then you have to calculate that all by hand. So you're still calculating all those costs, all that information, and that is expensive and it's costly. It's time consuming. The industry has a lot of high turnover rates, so therefore they're constantly turning over people. That means adding people into the service, taking people out. There are fees charged every time you set somebody up and terminate somebody. There's fees for extra checks if something happens. And you don't get a check out in time or you need an extra check. There's fees for edits that you have to do. There's fees for custom reports. And then there's the schedule. You generally following some sort of a schedule. You have a specific time. You have to, send your payroll over. And if it's not there, then you're out of schedule and you're in trouble. So not only do you still have to do all the work, you have to do it, verify it, you have to approve it, you have to electronically send it, and then you have to do all the special calculations prior to and the job codes with the tips, and all that has to be done on a timely basis. All your payroll service really provides when you get it is they print the checks and they do the quarterly tax reports, they do the W-2s and standard reports at the end of the year, and they may pay your taxes. Most of those things, if your payroll is set up properly, it's just using your computers to run that service. So if you have a good on-site or on-premise payroll package that handles the system, it's been properly set up, this becomes a relatively straightforward task every day, day in and day out. The quarterly reports are printed out of it. Your W-2s and standard reports at the end of the year are all there, but you have a little bit of flexibility. You can schedule it in. Something happens, somebody gets sick, something goes on. You've got the ability to be able to take care of those taxes and calculations and get it all done. And it's relatively straightforward to pay your taxes these days. The government has gone, all the state governments and federal governments have gone out of the way to make it very, very easy and convenient for all of us to be able to pay our taxes electronically, so it's a pretty simple process. The time and the work and the real work is in gathering, approving, transmitting, and we still have to do all of that. The departmental work so that you can properly assign your costs to the proper departments to see if you're making money or where you're making money and where you're losing it or where you've got problems. That's all still has to be done. Looking at the payroll services and the return on investment, I'm taking a look at a larger one, but I mean you can scale this back down. But we have customers that were reporting to us that there was a 600 employee payroll for 600 employees, and it was costing them $77,000 a year, and that wasn't counting ACA. ACA is not going to go away. It's going to be a part of our system, and so that's an extra cost on top of that. But $77,000 a year. I'm thinking you could do this payroll in a lot less time and a lot less money than $77,000 a year, not counting ACA. Incidentally, we also have two factors that you, I think, have heard about, but one of them is the fact that this does integrate with ACA, so we do have a really great ACA program to take care of that for you. And in addition to that, instead of printing checks, which I had mentioned in the prior slide, you can also do a direct deposit. This Food Service Payroll handles direct deposit straight out of the package and has a nice secure email notification to your employees. So that's all handled for you, and you don't have to worry about distributing payroll checks and then getting the proper reports to the employee for what they've earned and what they were paid that week. Just segueing back to the food service payroll, if you take a typical food service payroll package, you're going to need a system manager, let's say for 3 users. It could be less, could be a little more, depending upon how many people you have working in your payroll department. But you need, so a 3-user system package, you need Passport Payroll. This bolts on to standard payroll. You need the food service payroll, and then if you're above 50 employees, you would need to add the ACA. And then you have both corporate and food service PUP. So you would add all that up. It's roughly about $8,800 for the expense to do that. We're estimating that implementing a cost of $3,200, which is roughly 25 hours of support, implementation work, training, etc., at $125. And then the payroll clerk time per year, and we're estimating that most people in food service do 26 weekly payrolls every other week. It's roughly, for a payroll person to do that job, roughly about $20,000 a year. And if you take that, that's a total cost of $32,000 for the first year. And you will find that you will have a return on investment of under 6 months. If your cost of waiting, so if you wait and delay this whole purchase until next year this time, it's going to cost you $45,000, or the cost for 6 months of waiting is $22,500. For every month you put off this purchase, it's going to cost you $3,750 to your bottom line, to your customer's bottom line. Retail pricing on the food service payroll is $1,095 for the module itself. PUP is the standard 18% of retail value. We're estimating that you might need an initial support of $375, which is 3 hours of service, and the total retail price on that case would be $1,667. So out of that, what you get. One of the things that the customers also told us was that they were looking for an on-premise payroll service system. They really needed to have a reliable system, something that was solid, something that was dependable. Over the years, everybody is scared of 3 letters that sometimes bring strong men quaking to their knees, and that is the IRS. So they really need a system that works, is proven, it's dependable, it's reliable, it's solid, it doesn't have any problems, and it's backed up by a company that's maintaining it, keeping it up to date, keeping up with yearly payroll updates. You need payroll service updates almost every single year. Keeping up to date with factors that are behind the scenes, like SQL, and making sure that secure mailing and new features are added, like secure mailing and direct deposits, are added onto the system. That was a feature functionality that Food Service Payroll added in at the beginning of this year. The standard payroll package added it in afterwards. And it needs to be cost effective. I mean, everybody wants to try to save money, but you really need to make sure that it's costing you and it's really going to be effective. So you got to have those unit system items that I just mentioned above, but it also has to be cost effective to really make a bottom line improvement. Security, it really needs to be secure. Some of the reasons why some of the customers said that they were using outside services was confidentiality. But I got news for you. What they find out is after they get into it, they don't want to let an in-house person find out what people are making. Well, you can handle that in a number of different ways, but in most cases, if you're doing it outside, you're getting reports back, you're getting reports sent back, you're getting something, and they're going to have to do entries into payroll. This integrates totally into your general ledger and will go all the way through. So if you're using check rec and if you're using general ledger, this flows through and it doesn't have to be done. You don't have to do anything other than account for your checks and check rec every month. But you're going to have somebody seeing what everybody's going to make. It's not, so the confidentiality factor goes out the window. So it's really a great value that you can build onto your customer relationship, and you're now the trusted, valued partner that then stands as the expert that can be called in. It keeps a customer coming back to you at least once a year, gives them an opportunity to stay in touch, and you to stay in touch with them and to offer them reports, guidance, consulting, any of those other services that might come along with it. I think that's just about all I have on my side of the presentation, but we hope we've offered you the insight to be able to see that this software is really something that is a real opportunity for those partners to be able to pick up and take and run. We have put this out here because we've consistently done an awful lot of payroll customers, and it's something that everybody needs. They can go to QuickBooks, they can go to different packages, and sometimes they can get certain things done, but they cannot get a good payroll system to be able to do the things that, especially in food service, has to really need in order to keep your expenses under control. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Bill. Really some compelling information there. I would say the vast majority of our guests today are monitoring via devices. So I'm going to take a moment. For those guests listening via device speakers, we invite you to use the chat or Q&A buttons. In the meantime, Bill, if someone in our audience has an interest in maybe a more personalized discussion about their circumstances, what would you like someone to do under those circumstances?
Have us contact us here at the office, and the number's on the screen right there, but just have them give us a call at 603-666-3733, or they could jump onto our website, which is www.pcsolcorp.com, and you can enter a question or ask a request for some information. You could request a special demo. We would be more than happy to work with any partners or any customers of any partners as part of the partner relationship to be able to work with them and show them how this software can really benefit them, how they can see that return of 6 months or less, and how they can put that extra margin that's going to drop to the bottom line back into the customer's profit structure and earn you a customer for life.
That's just great. And just because I think it may be relevant, if someone is really just browsing and is really brand new to all of this, is it okay if they just dial direct the 603-666? In other words, they don't have to have an existing relationship with us. That's correct?
No, they don't. Just give us a call directly in. If they have a relationship, that's great. We'll work with whoever they're working with. If they don't have a relationship, we'd be more than happy to work with them or find a partner that is in their locality to be able to work. If we can do anything that they need, whatever's best for them.
Wonderful.
We've obviously been in business for 34 years, and quite frankly, for 34 years, we've probably always done payroll. It was one of those systems that we came down because almost anybody can do AR and AP, but payroll's a little bit different cat, and it usually requires a lot more training on our side to be able to support. It requires a little bit of knowledge, so you have to pay attention to what's going on. Those 3 little letters, IRS, are pretty scary for everybody. So there is a little bit of responsibility that comes along with that, but we found that it's well worth, as a partner, it's well worth putting that investment back in. And if you know payroll, then if you're already doing Passport Payroll, then you really know Food Service Payroll. There's just some additional feature enhancements that we've added on. So once you get those up and going, then the rest of it is everything you normally do. So there's really, for a partner, there's not a real big learning curve. Sure. For a non-food service, for a non-Passport customer, it really isn't much more if they're using Passport. It's really easy for them to get those features set up. And if they're not using Passport at all, then it's pretty easy. If they're doing payroll at all, excuse me, I keep getting my passports and payroll confused, but if they're doing payroll at all, which everybody is doing, in one form or another, it's relatively straightforward to pick up, the concept. So all we have to do is pick up the individual details, and it's relatively straightforward to get that going. As I said, 25 hours is our estimate, and that's for a larger customer. A lot of that's data entry.
It's very reassuring. Certainly, trying to learn new software can be intimidating. So that's reassuring that it is, not a lot to pick up. I am seeing a little traffic here. I have a texted question. Will there be another webinar or demo more focused on the FICA tip credit calculations? we still have a little bit of time in this period, but also it's good to hear there's interest in that FICA tip credit calculation. How would you like to address that?
I think the best way to do that would be a one-off. So whoever that is, I would recommend that you give us a call, and then we'll go through it directly with you.
All right, that sounds fine, and the number's there
that
on the
FICA
screen.
tip credit, if anybody, and again, I was watching when I asked for a show of hands for those that were at the Passport conference, and I didn't see any hands go up. But at the Passport conference, we actually had one of the partners stand up and say that one of the best functions that he could see out of the food service payroll was, in fact, that FICA tip credit report, and that he found that he had a customer that was more than paying for the cost of the implementation and the software in 1 year off of what they had. Obviously, it's a larger customer, but they used that FICA tip report, and it's worth its weight in gold.
My understanding is that it can really produce some substantial savings for an owner who's working with that. All right. Well, I will make a last call for questions. A comment here. Thank you very much for the information. Wonderful. Well, without further ado, thank you so much to our guests for making time in your busy day to join us. We appreciate that you take time out of your day. We're all very busy. And thank you, of course, to PC Solutions for some great information and a great demo. We look forward to seeing you at upcoming events. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.